So, welcome back to the High Vibe Healers Hangout, where we dive deep into the stories and insights from healers, coaches, and manifestation experts who are raising their vibrations and transforming their lives. I'm your host, Claire Donovan, your high-end manifestation coach, helping women manifest their dream lives by clearing energetic blocks and aligning with their highest potential. Today, we have a very special guest who shares a unique yet complementary path of healing and personal transformation. She's a coach and educator who is passionate about helping people connect more deeply with themselves and with others, with over 4 years of experience in nonviolent communication, personal development, and authentic relating. Welcome, Tracey. It is fabulous to have you here. I would love to know, in what space would nonviolent communication appear? Would it be in the personal development space?
I would say yes, it would be there, personal development.
Mhm.
I found it in a women's group, and
Okay.
one of the trainers was offering something called the Ongo book, which is partly to do with nonviolent communication. So that is where you will predominantly find it.
Okay.
However, I think everybody would benefit from knowing about it and practicing it.
Yes, sounds like it. So, how did was that a natural path into authentic relating? And can you just break down a little bit more about what authentic relating is?
Yes. I I found or I discovered nonviolent communication in 2020,
Mhm.
just at the start of COVID. And my partner was about to go away and work for a year.
Okay.
And I realized that I needed company. I had needs before I even realized that I had these needs.
Mhm.
And I sought out this women's group that I just referred to on Meetup.
Okay.
And what nonviolent communication gave me was a framework to be able to communicate.
Mhm.
And authentic relating is then giving me the next step, which is allowing me to communicate in a very connecting and meaningful way. So
Okay.
one gives me steps how to do it, one takes me deeper. I'm not interested in small talk. I want to know what excites you. I want you to know what excites me. I want us to know how we can support one another
Mm.
in this journey called life.
Yeah, fair enough. And what was the moment that led you to realize that this was it for you? This was going to be your life's work. Like this was your passion.
Yes, my first time with the Unger book with
Mhm.
this trainer. And that day at work, my bosses said to me, "Can you work any faster?" Now, because of my trauma and everything that all these lenses, I wasn't able to answer her. I was carrying on doing what I was doing, and I didn't have the words to share what was going on for me. That night, when I did nonviolent communication, the Ongo book, the trainer shared with me what I could have said using the MVC framework. And it was like, oh, because nobody had ever taken the time to explain how to communicate. You know, I come from a family of conflict, of shouters,
Mhm.
of people who didn't talk to each other for weeks.
Mhm.
I didn't have this language. Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication, calls it the language of life.
Mm.
So I was hooked on day one of finding nonviolent communication.
Excellent. And how do you feel that your personal experience and your lenses have influenced the way you coach and now teach others?
Yeah, great question. I like
Mhm.
frameworks. I like steps. Do this step, and then you do the next one and the next one. And when you get really good at it, you might miss some steps. So, how I like to work with people is letting them, giving them the framework, and
Mhm.
then letting them try it, having plenty of time for practicing, for role plays, letting them do it rather than just listen to me tell you about it. We do it together, we have some fun with it. we do real life examples of what's going on in your life. You might, practice something that didn't work so well in the past, or you've maybe got something coming up and have some support with that. And I think if we can practice what we're going to say, then when that event actually happens, we're more relaxed, we're more comfortable, and we're able to have that conversation with more ease and in a more connecting way.
Yeah, fantastic. I really like the sound of this, and I think it should be taught maybe in schools so that people have the ability to not just say how they feel, but actually understand what it is. They're like, oh yeah, like I do actually relate to that. I understand that you have managed to verbalize what I can't right now. So yeah, I really like that. And for listeners who might be new to nonviolent communication, could you explain how transformative it could be within like interpersonal relationships, like within the family dynamic?
Yeah, so if I take my husband as an example, before nonviolent communication, I would ask him to do something, and inadvertently, I was making a demand, and I didn't realize it. And in nonviolent communication, they tell us that when you make a demand, the other person has two choices. They can either submit or they can rebel. Or they can do it and you're going to pay later. So I guess that's rebelling. And my husband rebelled and we nearly split up. We were so close to splitting up. And then when I learned nonviolent communication, I understood that how I know it's a demand is if I hear the word no, how I respond. And I responded with, can you not give me 7 minutes of your time, the things that I was asking him to do? And he was like, well, we might as well not be together if you can't give me these 7 minutes. I wanted him to do something every day. And then later on, MVC, I just understood what I was doing. And that I was putting a lot of energy into my partner meeting my needs. I remember one time in the beginning of MVC, sitting down with him and telling him for 20 minutes how he was failing as a husband and what he could do better. Now, you can imagine how he took that. He probably wasn't listening for the majority of it. And I didn't realize that until later. Whereas now, I believe that my partner is the icing on the cake. I can meet a lot of my own needs and he just makes everything better.
So what would be some common misconceptions about nonviolent communication? Or do you find that people are a bit like me, that they've never actually heard that term before, but they can kind of guess what it is?
Yeah, the misconceptions usually are, I'm not violent. I don't need nonviolent communication. And then when you see what it actually is, it's how we communicate with ourselves. So before MVC, if I couldn't reverse park or I went the wrong way, I would scream, I would shout with frustration. And nonviolent communication has given me the tools to monitor my feelings, monitor my needs, because I got so angry because I wasn't meeting my needs, because I probably wasn't even aware of them. I remember years ago, like 20 plus years when my children was little, and as long as they were happy and my first husband was happy, then I never got my needs met, because I felt if they were happy, then that was meeting my needs, and it wasn't. I just kept having all these impacts and I wasn't dealing with it, and that's why this anger came out the way it did. So that would be one misconception.
And do you find that whenever people aren't getting their own needs met, that anger is a common iteration of what they're feeling? Yeah.
When it builds up and builds up, usually under anger there is another feeling, like sadness, something like that is underneath it.
I would say once you tackle anger, the other dominoes can start to fall because that's usually the biggest thing that is causing a lot of strife, either in personal life or within relationships and whatnot. So, do you
Mm.
find that, or have you found that this is helpful within workplace settings as well?
Yes, I haven't worked very much since I've been doing MVC in the workplace. I couldn't do my job during COVID
Hmm.
because of the rules and regulations. When I have worked, then it's been very helpful, and I've heard other people who use it in the workplace. And because the way we communicate in nonviolent communication with 4 steps
Hmm.
is that step number one is observations. Whereas a lot of people normally, if they're having a conversation with somebody, they'll talk in evaluative terms or they'll make judgments.
Hmm.
So in MVC, we look at it through the lens of a camera, what you can see and hear. So that takes out the judgment, the other person hearing it, because they are hearing facts that happened and they can agree to that.
Hmm.
Whereas a judgment saying you're lazy, they can say, no, I'm not lazy. I was tired and I was resting.
Hmm.
And then the second step is feelings. And in the workplace, we tend not to use feelings.
Hmm.
Or we might say, if we were feeling frustrated, we might say, I'm feeling a little bit frustrated. So we'd kind of play it down a little bit.
Hmm.
And we'd use needs, which is the third step, and put that into a sentence like, I'm really needing support with this project that needs to be finished on Friday.
Hmm.
And then make a clear, doable request what you do want. So, could you stay behind tonight for 2 hours, 5 to 7, and help me with this project? And then the person can say yes or no, or more information.
Okay. And with how does the language change then if you're needing support, say at home, like with your partner, if you need this, do you freely say, I'm feeling a little frustrated, or how does it differ from the workplace?
Yeah. So, as an example, can you give me an example that you might have in the home of something that you would what would be the request?
Um, could you take the bins out now rather than in the morning because usually you forget before you go to work?
Right. So you want the bins taking out now.
Yeah.
Okay then. So maybe we could do a little bit of
Sure.
coaching on this. Okay then. So what would be the feeling that you're feeling now when you see the bins there?
Uh, it's more trying to avoid the feeling of realizing the bins haven't gone out at 6 o'clock in the morning when you can hear the bin lorry. And it's like, oh no, I have to get up. And it's the avoidance of a feeling when you see
Yeah.
the bins still
So would
there.
you say you were a little bit worried?
Hmm, I don't, is it worried, just aggravated that I don't, if you're trying to avoid the aggravation in the morning, like I don't know
Yeah.
what that feeling would be. Maybe it is
Yeah.
worried about my own levels of stress, perhaps.
Yeah. It's when you're thinking about the future
Yeah.
that might happen. And what needs do you think would be met if the bin was to go out now rather than in the morning?
I would have more peace of mind, would sleep
Yeah,
better. I value my sleep a lot because I feel it is imperative for I have a heart condition, so I need to make sure I sleep properly. I get ample amounts of rest. I keep my stress levels low. My health is my priority. So perhaps something like the bins not going out and me having to rush out in my pajamas at 6 o'clock in the morning is a
yeah,
bit stressful.
yeah, yeah. So what we can do is we can speak in thoughts, which is the
Hmm.
first one. So maybe something like this. So when I imagine the the bins
Hmm.
having to rush out in the morning to do it, I feel a little bit worried because I really value my rest and sleep, and I don't want to be rushing out at 6 o'clock. Would you be willing to take the bins out now?
Okay. Okay. So a lot of pre-framing. Yeah.
Yeah, sharing what need would be met of yours is going
Yeah.
to give you sleep and rest. Sharing a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
the observable thing that, you might be worried about it, the observation.
Mm-hmm.
And then a clear, doable request that
Yeah.
he can say no to.
Okay.
And no is the start of the sentence. It's not the start of the conversation. It's not the
Mm.
end of the conversation.
And what if there was a no? How would you follow up in that conversation?
What would need to happen for it to be a yes?
Mm-hmm.
Could you do it in the next, could you do it in the next hour? Could you do it before you go to bed?
Mm.
So it might be that, your partner's busy at that time when you want him to empty the bins. But if you had this dialogue of like, well, when could you do it? He might say, oh, well, how about in 2 hours' time? And you'd be like, yeah, great.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Great. Thank you. I'm sure that's very helpful for people just in terms of understanding the main difference whenever you're with a partner or a co-worker or even a boss.
Mm,
So when it comes to authentic relating, the way you described it earlier, it made me think of myself. Whenever I meet somebody a bit, it sounds like yourself, I tend to know the full backstory and their full life story before I even know where they're from. Like I go very deep very quickly.
yeah.
And it seems like a very powerful tool for deepening relationships. And of course, if you're in conversation with somebody who does like and value small talk, it can be a bit tricky because I'm not great at small talk. But when it comes to deepening relationships, how do you practice authentic relating if you've never really done it before, if you're king or queen of the small talk?
Yeah. Well, would you like to play one of the games?
Sure.
An authentic relating game. So let's do it. And this is called the noticing game.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is we're going to go backwards and forwards.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start and I'll say, being here with you, I notice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to share with you either one thought,
Mm-hmm.
one feeling, one emotion, one thing that I'm seeing, maybe on your camera or in my vicinity. So that would look like, and I'm checking in what I want to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
So being here with you, I notice your little koala bear in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to take a breath and you're going to say, hearing that, I notice. And
Mm.
that can be any of those things again.
Well,
And it
here,
can be related, sorry to interrupt there, it can be related to the koala bear, or it could be, I'm thinking about what I'm going to cook for dinner. It doesn't have to be related to what I've just said. It's what
okay.
is alive in you right now.
Well, initially it is related. So what I notice after that is that obviously we're both immigrants to Australia.
Right. Yeah. So then I'm going to take a breath. And hearing that, um, I notice tears behind my eyes because I absolutely love this country. And
Mm.
then you would say, hearing that, I notice, whatever it might be.
And hearing that, I notice a real feeling of being homesick. I do love this country, but I miss my family. Yeah.
Yeah. So hearing that, um, yeah, I get this sense of my energy dropping and I'm feeling a little bit sad.
Mm. And hearing that, I do feel a tiny bit guilty.
Yeah. Uh, hearing that, I really enjoyed hearing you laugh.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
And hearing that, I am grateful for the sunshine and the joy that it brings to me.
Yeah. So should we leave it there?
Sure.
So you could go backwards and forwards
Yeah.
like that for as long as you need to. And I've had some quite often, I'm in tears by what we reveal with each other during that game.
Wow.
So it helps us when we're in a conversation with somebody, where somebody is telling you their life story. And maybe you don't want to keep listening to it. You could say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm feeling quite tired, or I'm feeling quite hungry, because they cannot dispute what's going on for you. And then you can make a request, like, I'm wondering if we could end this conversation in the next 5 minutes. That's how you would use it in the real world.
Okay. And what do you think the biggest challenges people might face if they're new to connecting authentically?
I think that would be not recognizing the body sensations. Maybe when they're upset or when they're scared, we do that fight, flight, and freeze, because maybe we haven't been aware of the signs that our body is talking to us all the time. That ache in the shoulder, it's telling you something, and we don't see it. So I think in the beginning of nonviolent communication, it's to help us to have a vocabulary of feelings, because quite often I've heard it could be mad, glad, bad, or sad. They were the only 4 feelings. And there's a whole spectrum of feelings, excited and happy and joyful, and also anxious and despairing. There's ones on the other side as well. And also being aware of our needs. Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of NVC, said that we only ever do something to meet a need. So what anybody is ever doing is trying to meet a need. And sometimes they don't do that in a great way, but that's the best way that they can do it at that time.
And is the coaching that you do now different to the work that you did pre-2020?
Yes. Yeah. For most of my life, especially when I was in England, that was an office job, working for the local council. And then when I've been in Australia just over 10 years, and I haven't had too many jobs, but mainly that's working on a farm. That's driving a tractor or looking after the sheep. And I also did a really short period of time working with intellectually disabled adults. And I was in the day center, and I loved it. I was doing playful activities with the clients who came. It was very rewarding and a lot of fun.
It sounds it. So how do you incorporate authentic relating into your work with clients as a coach?
What I do when I'm teaching nonviolent communication, I will interweave authentic relating games as a way of practicing. So if we want to get in contact with our feelings, we might just go backwards and forwards with feelings, or we might act out how we're feeling, and we'll get the group to guess what they're feeling. As an example. And with the authentic relating, there's workshops. Can I talk about the one that's starting this week?
Yep, go for it.
So on the 16th of October at 11 a.m. AEDT, there is an 8-week deep dive authentic relating, and we stay with the same cohort of people for 8 weeks, and we do authentic relating games, and we also do something called circling, which was very much like what we did. So it was, if you can imagine, maybe 6 or 7 people, and they're popcorning how they're feeling and what they're noticing. So it helps us to stay in the present moment and to be aware of what is going on in our body. So that would be another way working with clients is playing these games. We call them games. So during our coaching session, I will introduce some games. If the person is struggling with interrupting or wanting to share information, I'll introduce games that help us to do that.
Okay. And with your workshop, is it online?
It's online, yes.
And because this isn't going to be released until next Monday.
Okay.
Can people join after that date that you mentioned? No.
No, unfortunately not. No.
Okay. I create an event in advance, so I'll have the details in the post, and
Right.
I also promote the podcast episode before it goes, so I'll make sure to include the details there if you just want to send those to me after
Yes,
our wee
excellent.
chat.
Yep.
That sounds fantastic. Since I focus on helping women primarily to manifest their ideal lives, I'm curious what you think about how how does deepening our communication skills with others play a role in manifesting those better relationships and experiences as a whole?
I'd like to take that question in a slightly different place
Sure.
to say that back in 2014, when I was in Australia on a holiday visa,
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a woman from Brazil. And what we did together was I wrote down what I was looking for in a partner.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote like things that I wanted, things that would be nice to have, things that I didn't want, and deal breakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I tapped on it like 3 times a day, believing that I had met this person. I'm feeling wonderful, spontaneous, happy. And within 4 weeks, I met Colin. That's my partner. And then within 5 months, we got married.
Wow.
And it has been the easiest relationship ever because I was focusing on what I did want rather than what I didn't want.
Yep. That
Yeah,
is how you will accelerate any manifestation, but also being clear on what you don't want is important, but not focusing on it.
that's right. Yeah. So I would turn it around, rather than saying I don't want another alcoholic, which is what I had been doing. It was like I've met this person who is healthy,
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to your question, how does non-violent communication help with communication, was it?
Oh, no, it was how does like deepening your communication skills in general help with manifesting or cultivating better relationships and experiences in general, whether with a partner or with a work colleague or your boss, if things haven't been great with them.
Yeah, I think it was in the end of 2023, I did 3 workshops, and it was looking at how to improve a current relationship that you have with somebody,
Hmm.
or it was finding a new partner. And what we did was we looked at the needs that we have
Hmm.
and what values we long for in a partner, which is much the same as that list that I was talking to. And then you rate yourself. So if
Hmm.
you're wanting somebody who is healthy, then actually looking at yourself, how healthy are you?
Hmm.
And we marked those out of 10, and then we looked at having practicing the scripts. There's one guru who advocates imagining that you're already in that relationship and you're going for a walk and you're having this imaginary conversation.
Hmm.
And if you're doing that with NVC lens,
Hmm.
you're asking them about their day and you are, really curious.
Hmm.
You want to know. And you could imagine what they're asking you, and then you could be saying that with this lens of nonviolence, with being really interested in the other person.
I am, that's an excellent answer, but I'm very curious about the word violence in like the nonviolent communication section. Like what constitutes as violence? Is it anything that could be potentially demanding or
Yeah.
what's the word? Just very more forceful than anything?
That's right. Yeah. And judgments and
Okay.
labels,
Okay.
the way we speak.
Mm-hmm. The tone and everything. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just fascinating to me because well, I have always endeavored to increase my communication skills. This isn't something that I've come across, but I imagine that it is incredibly helpful if the two parties are willing to give it a go. And it's not just a one-sided situation, because obviously it's not going to be possible in all relationships, depending on who the other person is. So I think it's potentially completely life-changing for some people.
It was definitely life-changing for me. And I will add that my husband isn't here with me doing the training.
Hmm.
He is like he's on his path, I'm on my
Oh,
path.
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't, in the beginning it was like, can you give me some empathy? And it was like, I don't know what that is. So it's been a slow process, and it is
Hmm.
only me doing the MVC.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I do hear him when he's talking to people, he will be referencing something that we've spoken about. And because I've changed,
Hmm.
he's changed.
Yeah. Well, in my example, I was just imagining, and when I said open to it, I didn't mean that both were doing the training,
Mm,
more that as a spouse, you were coming home going, oh, I learned this, this, and this today. Would you be willing to give it a try? Something like that. Because that's how I operate whenever I learn something new. Um, because I'm always very aware that you will cement that knowledge in your brain if you teach it to somebody else. So I'm always
yes.
like, listen up, bud. This is what I learned today. Let's give it a go. And he's always very open and receptive to it, which is fantastic because I've had relationships in the past where they were not at all
Mm,
receptive to it. And I feel that it has helped to facilitate my spiritual growth exponentially compared
mm,
to where I was, which is fantastic. And I have found that working on my communication skills in general has helped my relationship, not just with him, but with family members. And like we did in the exercise earlier, there was a lot of pre-framing. I realized that that was essential, especially with my psychology training. The pre-framing, you're going to kind of eliminate a lot of objections that may have come up if you kind of preload the conversation with how this is going to help either you, us, them.
mm.
Just let them know the benefits before you start doing the demands, because they're obviously going to have a lot of questions afterwards. And
Yes.
yeah, it's very, very beneficial. So,
Can I just add on that?
of
Yeah,
course.
I use Colin as a guinea pig. He's my partner. So with the authentic relating games, when I'm getting ready for an event, it was like, oh, can we just when it's our date night, it's like, oh, can we just play these few games? And I just love learning new things about him
Oh
by
yeah,
playing the games.
yeah, I like that too. I like the card games that you can get about for deepening relationships, and it's random questions like, if you had $1 million and could go on one trip, where would you go? It's finding
Yes,
out those things that wouldn't just come up in regular old conversations in the day, like when you're talking about bringing out the bins, like that's like,
exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
that's fantastic. So, in your opinion, again, what is the connection between the way we communicate with others and the energy that we attract into our lives? Because you spoke earlier about your energy getting a bit low.
Oh,
Spoke about being
yeah.
sick.
What comes to mind then is vibration. Like
Mhm.
we're on different vibrations, and I imagine, well, I do know when I came into Australia, a relationship had just ended, and I was depressed. Day
Mhm.
one of Australia, it was the end of December, beautiful summer's day, and I just wanted to go back to miserable old England,
Mhm.
and because I was so depressed and down,
Mhm.
and it took me probably a good 6 months
Mhm.
of healing, raising my vibration, doing lots of different healing, meeting different people.
Mhm.
I remember New Year's Eve, I put it out there, can I meet some new friends? And New Year's Eve, I met somebody, and then a few weeks later, I was introduced to Meetup,
Mhm.
and in Perth was just like amazing. There was all these different groups and people that I
Mhm.
could go to, and I just loved it. So I met more people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, and have you ever seen through your coaching someone's ability to communicate authentically begin to open up doors and opportunities for them that haven't happened before? Like their mind is being blown. It's like, you know what, this hasn't happened to me before because I never thought X, Y, and Z.
That's right. I remember I had this quote once, and it said something like, "Stop looking at the closed doors and look to see what doors can open."
Mm-hmm.
So it's when we can like raise our vibration, do these courses and meditations that you offer.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to help remove the baggage maybe that we're carrying and those past hurts, to put them down, make them compost.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the world can open up to us and synchronicity, the next thing happens and then the next thing happens. And we're in a totally different place, from where I was in like 11 years ago
Mm-hmm.
to where I am now. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm the same. I've only been here for 2 years, but there's been an awful lot of transformation and just events happening in that small space of time. And one thing that we both do focus on is helping people really connect more deeply with themselves and understanding themselves. What is your approach to helping clients understanding their inner world through the nonviolent communication?
So how do I help clients to see their inner world?
Mm,
There's many different authentic relating games.
okay.
It's like different titles like Who Are You?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you pretend to be? How do
Mm-hmm.
you feel about that? That would be one game. We've got another game which is Allies and Saboteurs. So it's like, who are your allies? What gets things done? Who are the saboteurs and how do they play out in your life?
Mm-hmm.
So there are some games that we play. And in non-violent communication, we can maybe look at what our purpose is.
Mm,
And it's like, are you doing things in line that's going to help you get to your purpose? Or are you busy doing all these other things and you have no time for it? So it
mm,
helps us to reevaluate what's important in our lives and with support of others. That's what I love about NVC. We've got this community of people who just want to help and support each other in becoming the best versions of ourselves.
yeah. And do you find that whenever people first come to you that they have a lot of inner work to do to kind of improve on the communication and the being relational?
I think quite often that the majority of people, yes, are like that. They've
Mm,
got a lot of trauma, hurts from the past that they're carrying around.
mm-hmm,
And I was probably much the same when I came, my beliefs about not being good enough
mm-hmm,
and not, I didn't have the like skill to speak up when my boss said what she did.
mm-hmm,
So I was much in the same place when I guess when NVC found me.
mm,
But I was like them as well. And for the last 3 years, I've just dedicated myself to studying it full time
mm.
in order to really embody it. And what I love about it is the more you practice, then it starts to happen automatically.
Yeah,
And you do it without even thinking. And that's just like,
yeah. When you reach that moment,
that's
it's like,
gold.
"Yes, finally, I've practiced." Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you this. I remember one point with empathy. We're
Mm-hmm,
very nonviolent communication puts a lot of focus on empathy. There's three modes to the MVC. There is self-connection with
mm-hmm,
yourself. There's empathy for the other, and
mm-hmm,
there's honest expression. So where I was going with the empathy in the beginning when I found NVC was I was trying to fix people. I was trying to educate them.
mm-hmm,
I was maybe doing all these things which were not empathy and were not connecting,
mm-hmm,
telling people what to do. I remember one time for weeks and weeks telling my son, you should join Toastmasters. I'll pay for Toastmasters. And I kept going on and on about it, not realizing that it was actually disconnecting us.
mm,
Whereas maybe if I would have empathized with him and so he would have felt heard
mm.
by what he was saying rather than mum just saying, well, I think you should. That would have helped the conversation.
Did he join Toastmasters?
He didn't. No.
Did he do anything of the equivalent?
And I still think you should. And I didn't harp on about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that can be the hardest one. It's like, oh, I know that this could propel you forward, but I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah.
I just out of interest, whenever your boss said that to you, can you work faster? I know what my initial reaction would have been in my head. I wouldn't have said it out loud, but it would have been, you fucking joking? What what was there something like that going on in your head, or were you just like, heh, and
I was freeze. I
frozen?
was like, because that was my go-to. That was my habit. That is what I've learned
Mm-hmm.
when I don't know how to answer somebody. It's like,
Rabbit in the
and
headlights.
and she said it. She said it like I'm going to say 5 or so minutes later. She said it again, and again. I never answered her. And it was, I think, a few months later, and I said to her, "Do you remember do you remember that time when you said to me, 'Can you work any faster?'" And she said, "Yeah." And she says, "I didn't think you'd heard me. That's why I said it again."
Did
Yeah.
she, did you then tell her the impact of what she said?
I did not. I just explained that I just couldn't answer her. Could I give you what I learned in that
Oh, yes,
first week of
sure.
MVC?
Definitely.
Yeah. So this is what the teacher said to me. What I could have said.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear, "Can you work any faster?" Oh, I feel a bit scared because I really value my safety.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to let me work at a speed that is safe for me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the MVC teacher shared with me. And I was reflecting on this quite recently. And I thought another thing I could have said was, I'm curious. I'm hearing you'd like me to work faster. Can you give me some examples of how you think I might be able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And have this back and forth dialogue with her because I was lifting heavy boxes from one place onto a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she saw somewhere, maybe I was a little bit slow in reading the labels
Mm-hmm.
or something. But I'll never know because I didn't have that conversation with her. But that would be great if I had it done. Like, oh, could you see where I can work any faster?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can say, oh, I'm willing to try that, or no, I think that's beyond my capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can make a request.
Mm. Yeah, okay, interesting. So what role then do you think boundaries play in everything you've learned through nonviolent communication and also the authentic relating?
I was listening to this just this week, and they was talking about requests.
Mm-hmm.
If we have clear, doable requests,
Mm-hmm.
then we can communicate with each other. We can have a dialogue with each other
Mm-hmm.
rather than me saying, "You've crossed my boundary."
Mm-hmm.
Like if I've got clear requests that you know the way I like something,
Mm-hmm.
then so we don't refer to them as boundaries in MVC.
Okay. Okay. Is there a word? Just requests?
I would say yes. It's I'm just struggling to bring to mind what this article was or whatever I listened to, what it actually said. But I'm positive it was something to do with requests. And if you know that I like something in a certain way, or I like you to arrive at a certain time,
Mm.
and we have a dialogue about that, and you're in agreement with it, then we're going to get along a lot better.
Okay. And just on a personal note, do you integrate any other healing modalities or personal growth techniques into your coaching practice?
Yeah, I do a bit of breath work.
Mm.
I've really found that useful in Toastmasters,
Mm-hmm.
being nervous, speaking, doing the box breathing.
Mm-hmm.
I also used to do laughter yoga.
Oh, yeah.
So from time to time, that was more in the past where I would be laughing
Mm-hmm.
to raise those endorphins.
Mm-hmm.
I also have done in the past some cold water baths, the Wim Hof method.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't remember what you call that, ice baths. And I do a little bit of tapping.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing else coming to mind.
Do you recommend any of these to your clients?
Well, definitely the breathing.
Yeah.
All of us, if we've come out of a difficult conversation, or we know we're going into a difficult conversation, we can breathe. We can help our nervous system to, try and stay as balanced, come down and be balanced, or, if we're going into one, just to try and keep calm. I'm writing a book. Can I share a little bit about that?
Yeah.
So the book is called How the Bleep Do I Remember to Use MVC? And one of the techniques, the strategies that we can use is to plan our day. So we know that, at 3:00 we're going to have a meeting with our boss, and it might be over something tricky. So if we can plan for that beforehand, like, what strategies can you use that is going to help you in that moment? So it could be beforehand, you're going to maybe go out for a walk, or you're going to do some deep breathing. And then during, with the boss, you can have written down some things that you could do. It could be offering empathy, it could be reflecting, could be deep breathing again. And then afterwards review it. It's like, how did I go? How was that meeting with my boss? And it's like, yeah, maybe I forgot to do that, and that would have been better. Because then the next time we're in a meeting with our boss, we're going to hopefully remember that, and we'll be able to put it into practice.
Excellent. So where do you see your work heading next as a coach? Are you going to continue to host workshops? And how do you feel like your coaching practice is evolving?
I'm in collaboration with another person, and what we're looking to do is, with Nonviolent Communication, is to have a platform where people can go and they can get everything that they need. This is to do with trainers, because when there's a new MVC person and they want to teach it to somebody, it's like there isn't a curriculum that I can just buy and teach. You go to different teachers, and what we want to do is we want to bring all of our knowledge together by a number of people and then offer it. And it might be that that's a monthly subscription where you'll have access to different videos, different worksheets, and then you'll also have access to me and the other person delivering workshops. So that's one of the things. And also going out and speaking. On the 26th, I don't know if you've got any listeners in the Melbourne area. On the 26th of October, myself and 3 others are going to the Doncaster Playhouse. And we're going to be telling our MVC stories and activities. And that's from 10 a.m. to 2:30. And I'll send you that link so listeners can attend if they want to.
Fantastic. And if there's one key message or takeaway that you would love our listeners to walk away with today, what would it be?
I would say go and have a look at MVC. Have a look on YouTube. I'll maybe give you a link to a video, which is Marshall Rosenberg teaching it for 3 hours in America. I'll also give a link to a book, Language of Life. So, look at the video, have a look at the book, have a look at practice groups, and take that step. I honestly believe your future self will thank you for it. You will learn so much about how to communicate and have more easeful and connecting relationships with people.
Wow. What a powerful conversation. Thank you so much, Tracey, for sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And I've definitely taken something away from it. And it's things that I would use with my clients, but I never thought about doing it at home. And sometimes you just don't connect. But I know our listeners will be walking away with some incredible insights on how to communicate more authentically and just create deeper connections in their lives. So fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Yeah.
And for all of you tuning in, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the High Vibe Healers Hangout wherever you're listening right now, whether it is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform. Make sure to like, rate, leave a comment or a review, subscribe, because your feedback helps us reach more amazing souls just like you. Until next time, keep raising your vibration and stepping into your highest potential. I am Claire Donovan, Manifestation Coach, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the High Vibe Healers Hangout.